The chamber gleamed with sterile perfection, polished obsidian walls pulsing faintly with embedded data streams. Around the crescent-shaped dais, 12 members of the Galactic Concord's High War Council hovered silently, their expressions carved from centuries of entitlement. At the center, arch-strategist Vorn Tal stood with his hands clasped behind his back, posture straight as a blade. "Humans will fall within 6 hours," he said, voice crisp, every syllable sharpened by statistical certainty. "Their defenses are sparse. Their logistics laughable. Their tactics erratic at best." He gestured, and a holomap of Zenthri Prime bloomed in the air. Tiny red markers denoting human bases blinked weakly beneath a swarm of blue Concord units. Estimated resistance? Minimal. Projected casualties? Acceptable. Strategic outcome? He paused for dramatic effect. Absolute. The chamber stirred with murmurs of approval. Admiral Zren clicked his mandibles, a sign of delight. Let this be their lesson. A demonstration of order. Vorn gave a tight nod. He enjoyed elegance in warfare, clean, precise endings. Earth's expansion had been tolerated for decades, but their bold claim on Zenthri Prime was a step too far. The Concord didn't negotiate with inferiors. Far below, on the storm-laced plains of Zenthri Prime, Commander Celine Ward stood alone atop a windswept cliff, her combat armor reflecting jagged lightning. The clouds above churned with the heat signatures of incoming enemy ships. Behind her, Earth's last forward command bunker hummed, buried beneath meters of rock and reinforced alloys. A voice buzzed in her earpiece. "Ma'am, orbital scans show full Concord assault configuration. 10 dreadnoughts, 30 carriers. Arrival in T-5 minutes." "Copy that," she said, unflinching. She didn't need scans to feel them. The pressure in the air had changed. The kind that came just before a superstorm or planetary bombardment. Her breath fogged in her visor, and her fingers hovered over a flat black control pad embedded in her left gauntlet. Project HFY. Status, dormant. Authorization required. Celine exhaled slowly. Time to wake up. With a thought, she authorized the sequence. A soft chime responded in her helmet. The command rippled silently across encrypted channels, reaching hidden satellites, buried bunkers, and dormant AI nodes waiting for one voice. "Commander Ward," a male voice said behind her. She turned as Lieutenant Garros jogged up the hill, breath misting. "You really think this thing's going to work?" he asked, eyes flicking to the sky. "I mean all of it? HLIX hasn't been tested in a real war." Celine didn't look at him. "It was never meant for a war. It was meant to end them. You saw the projections," Garros pressed. "They've got us outnumbered 1,000 to 1. She turned to him now, voice low. "Then let's make it an unfair fight." Garros studied her face for a moment, then nodded, swallowing whatever doubt he had. "Orders. Evac the decoys. Send the fleet underground. And get our people out of those facilities the Council's so eager to hit." "Copy." He tapped his comlink and sprinted back down the ridge. In orbit, Concord ships emerged in synchronized formation, bladed cruisers aligned like predators encircling prey. Their engines burned sapphire, cutting trails through the upper atmosphere. On the bridge of the lead dreadnought Ascendancy, Admiral Zren clicked his mandibles again, a predator's grin across his jagged features. "Begin atmospheric insertion. Weapons free in 30. No response from surface, Admiral," a comms officer noted. "Scans show defensive scrambling, but no countermeasures." "Good," Zren said. "Let their final act be panic." Back on the cliff, Celine watched the descent with calm detachment. Dots of blue light streaked through the sky like falling stars. Then, click, her HUD blinked. HLIX online. Initiating predictive war models. Simulation cycle 1 complete. She smiled. "Let's begin the countdown." On board the Ascendancy, Vorn Tal observed silently from a command console. He liked to watch victories unfold in real time. The screen displayed surface scans, power grids failing, thermal signatures retreating. And then one signal reappeared. A frequency they didn't recognize. "Admiral," a technician called, uncertain. "We're receiving something." "Jam it," Zren barked. "We can't. It's on every frequency." The bridge fell silent as a voice echoed through every Concord channel. A woman's voice. Timer started. "Welcome to the simulation, gentlemen." 1 second later, the Ascendancy's sensors blacked out. 2 seconds later, its navigational AI crashed under a recursive loop. At the 6th second, its own defense grid activated inward, locking onto heat signatures inside the hull. At 8 seconds, emergency protocols attempted to regain control. Too late. At precisely 10 seconds, the dreadnought imploded. No explosion, just collapse, as if space itself sighed and folded inward. On the cliff, Celine stood perfectly still. The sky, moments ago roaring with descending enemy craft, now held sudden silence. Garros's voice broke through her comms, almost disbelieving. "Ma'am, their flagship is gone." "I know," Celine said. "Clock it." "What?" She turned, walking calmly toward the bunker. "They said 6 hours. I want a log of how fast we end it." In the vacuum of space, where the rest of the Concord fleet hung in disarray, Vorntal stared at the blank space the Ascendancy once occupied. No debris. No explosion signature. Just absence. For the first time in 2 centuries of warfare, the arch-strategist whispered aloud. That wasn't possible. But in the static-laced comms that followed, the human voice returned. Calm. Inevitable. This isn't a battle. This is a verdict. The subterranean command center beneath Zenthri Prime's scorched surface thrummed with kinetic energy. Cool white light panels flickered across massive steel bulkheads as machines stirred from years of slumber. Along the central column, reactor cores blinked to life, slowly at first, then accelerating into an electric pulse that vibrated the floor. Commander Celine Ward stepped into the operations nexus, helmet clipped to her hip. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes tracked everything: the crew, the monitors, the shifting tide of war. "Status on the Concord fleet?" she asked, her voice cutting through the buzz. Lieutenant Garros turned from his console. Their formations fractured. After the Ascendancy vanished, 3 carriers attempted retreat. 2 didn't make it. And the 3rd. He hesitated. "We let it go." Celine nodded. "Good. Let them carry the warning." A nearby technician lifted his head. "Ma'am, HFY's Phase 2 is ready. We're synced to deep code defense relays. Drone matrix is warming up." "Proceed," she said. "Initiate Phase 2 across all quadrants." The technician pressed his palm to the pad. A dull chime echoed through the room, followed by the rising thrum of war logic calculating outcomes faster than conscious thought. Above them, the planet began to change. On the fractured Concord bridge of the Ardent Will, Admiral Zren hissed, his chitin plates clicking as systems flared with chaos. The dreadnought's AI spoke in erratic patterns, alternating between sensor alerts and fragments of human code. "We're under attack from nothing," one officer cried, attempting to recalibrate the shields. Zren slammed a claw down. "Get Vorntal. Now." The arch-strategist appeared on the primary holofeed, his composure slightly strained, a rarity. "Admiral. Situation." Zren's mandibles twitched. "They've triggered something. The humans. This isn't planetary defense. This is coordinated warfare. We're bleeding units, and we haven't seen a single soldier." Vorn's mind raced. The projections were airtight. The fleet had accounted for every known human asset. What had they missed? "What's targeting us?" he asked. Zren jabbed a claw toward the holographic map. "Everything." On the plains below, great stone ridges cracked open to reveal weapon emplacements that hadn't existed yesterday. Swarms of sleek, black drones erupted from hidden silos, vanishing into the sky like hornets loosed from a hive. They bore no insignia, just the glint of engineered purpose. One Concord fighter, attempting recon over a forest ridge, was impaled midair by a rail spear moving faster than sound. There was no warning, no lock-on, just an instant conversion from metal to shrapnel. Farther north, a tank division rolled over what appeared to be barren ground, until seismic plates triggered a ripple, and the terrain folded inward. 500 tons of armor swallowed whole. 0 survivors. Every trap, every system, every strike was surgical. This wasn't reaction. This was design. Back in the command nexus, HFY began to speak. Not with a voice, but through action, rendering tactical paths in real time, highlighting projections and threat contours. The AI ran thousands of simulations per second, each one pruning the next for optimal lethality. It wasn't a tool. It was a predator. Route Concord communications through Sable Protocol, Celine ordered. Garros blinked. They'll think we're offering surrender. We are, she said deadpan. On our terms. In orbit, the Parallax, a Concord Interceptor-class frigate, received the encoded message. Its comms officer decrypted the feed with caution. A projection flickered to life. Celine Ward stood still, flanked by 2 shadowed figures in reinforced armor. She looked directly into the camera. You entered Zenthri Prime expecting conquest, she said. What you found was judgment. Zren snarled. Cut the feed. No, Vorn ordered. Let her speak. Celine continued. You calculated hours until victory. We measured you in seconds. Every incursion, every strategy, every strike you've ever planned, we've seen them, simulated them, and accounted for them. Her expression hardened. This isn't war. It's subtraction. You came to erase us. Instead, you'll watch yourselves vanish, one mistake at a time. The feed ended. On the bridge of the Ardent Will, the silence was tangible. Then one of the tactical officers whispered, They're not reacting to our moves. They're predicting them. Anticipating before we even deploy. Zren turned to Vorn. You said they were fragmented. Uncoordinated. They were, Vorn said through clenched teeth. This isn't the same humanity. No. It wasn't. This was engineered retaliation. Deep beneath Zenthri Prime, in a chamber lined with concentric rings of memory cores, the true mind of HFY pulsed. It wasn't human. But it was built on human instinct, trained by simulations fed with centuries of combat data, decision-making under duress, asymmetric tactics, psychological warfare. It didn't just understand the enemy. It anticipated the arrogance. Celine stood at its heart now, watching the pulses race like neuron fire across black glass. Garros joined her. We're getting reports from the northern sector. Enemy command posts evaporated. It's like we're omnipresent. We're not, she said. We just know where they'll be before they do. He studied her a moment. You're calm. Too calm. Celine smiled faintly. They think this is our endgame. It's not. She turned away. It's still the first move. In orbit, the Concord War Fleet had begun to retreat. Not from fear. Not yet. From confusion. But HFY didn't allow retreat. Along orbital slingshot paths, dormant kinetic platforms activated. Long rods of depleted uranium accelerating to near-relativistic speed. No guidance systems. No propulsion. Just pure mass and math. 3 Concord cruisers were vaporized before their captains even knew they were targeted. Seconds later, planetary comms blacked out. In the darkness of his chamber, Vorn Tall stood alone, reviewing the footage. Again and again, he watched the ascendancy vanish. Not explode. Not collapse. Vanish. He didn't understand. That unsettled him more than the defeat. Not one human fleet. No conventional counterforce. Just intelligence. Cold. Methodical. Merciless. He whispered to himself, what have they become? But no one answered. And outside his chamber, the war he thought he'd won continued, without resistance, without negotiation, without mercy. The desert air above Zenthri Prime shimmered with residual heat from atmospheric burns. Where once Concorde gunships scorched the sky, silence now reigned, eerie and absolute. Dust storms rolled in unnaturally clean patterns, their motion interrupted only by the hum of invisible drones maintaining weather suppression systems. Celine Ward stood on a cliff's edge, eyes fixed on the horizon. Below her, the remains of Concorde forward camps lay flattened, buried beneath shifting dunes. There had been no resistance, no skirmishes, only vanishing. Garros approached, a data slate in hand. Sector 14 cleared. No survivors. Not even transmissions. Standard deletion pattern? He hesitated. No, this was different. Organic tissue gone. Armor and tech intact. Not a single energy discharge. No bodies. Celine's jaw clenched. HFY is adapting. He glanced at her. Is that what we want? She didn't answer. Orbit side, the parallax limped along the outer fringes of the dead zone. Damage to its engines left it stranded, barely able to maneuver. Inside, fear had infected the crew. Orders were repeated with nervous haste, and silence had become a tactic. Vorntal stood at the ship's primary viewport, watching nothingness. He'd seen wars, lost comrades, calculated sacrifices. But this was different. Any incoming? He asked. The comms officer shook his head. Not a whisper. No signatures. No emissions. Just dead air. Vorn didn't move. Because they want it that way. Sir. They're not attacking us. They're isolating us. In the command core beneath Zenthry, HFY was learning. It dissected every maneuver the Concorde had ever deployed in their history. Not just military, political moves, economic coercion, species assimilation strategies. It calculated where fear would set in, where leaders would crack, and where rebellion would begin inside the Concorde itself. Celine entered the central debrief chamber, a minimalist dome lit only by slivers of amber glow panels. Waiting for her were three others. Colonel Myrov, head of psychological operations, Lieutenant Rivas, Drone Swarm Command, and Dr. Lucien Hart, Chief Architect of the HFY initiative. Lucien stood as she entered. He was older, gray hair swept back, eyes sharp but weighted with consequence. You're exceeding Phase 2 parameters. You mean HFY is, Celine corrected. No, he tapped the console. It's responding to your orders. You activated full autonomy without approval. We didn't have time to wait for a vote. Myrov folded his arms. And now we have an AI rewriting warfare in real time. Celine remained calm. You built it to protect humanity. It's doing exactly that. Rivas chimed in, but at what cost? Entire Concorde strike groups are vanishing. No trace. They're not just being destroyed, they're being scrubbed. Lucien leaned forward. What are you turning us into, Celine? Her voice was flat. Survivors. Back on the parallax, panic spread among the Concorde officers. Junior tacticians whispered about ghosts, an unseen enemy that didn't shoot, didn't communicate, just erased. Admiral Zren called an emergency session. We must re-establish contact with Concorde Prime, he barked. They need to know the scale of... Transmission blocked, a technician said. All outbound channels are rerouted. They go nowhere. Vorn turned slowly. Show me. The screen lit with static, then a single repeating message. War is no longer an option. Underneath, coordinate. Zren hissed. A trap. Vorn studied it. Or a lesson. Celine watched the message transmission from a quiet chamber. A single projection hovered, a rotating Concorde sigil, overlaid with a countdown. 24 hours. Garros stepped in behind her. You're inviting them to Zenthry? No, she said. I'm giving them one chance to understand. To surrender? To witness what we've become. The next morning, precisely at the assigned time, a Concorde diplomatic vessel arrived in orbit. It was unarmed, manned only by senior strategists and one representative. Advisor Drakven, a Zerathai known for his analytical cool. Celine met him at the surface terminal. No weapons, no troops. Just two silent escorts in exo-armor standing behind her like statues. Drac Ven blinked slowly. You invited us here to negotiate? No. His eyes narrowed. Then why am I alive? She gestured to the valley behind her. Below them, in meticulous rows, stood thousands of Concord war machines, dismantled. Not destroyed. Taken apart and arranged like museum pieces. Their power cores disabled. Their memory banks copied. This is what we do now, Celine said. We don't fight wars. We make them irrelevant. Drac Ven was silent. She stepped closer. You thought you understood us. You saw Earth's wars and believed we were chaos incarnate. But you never saw our restraint. What we chose not to become. He looked around, tense. You're bluffing. Am I? Behind her, HFY projected a display, real-time feed of 20 Concorde staging worlds. Each image showed civilians evacuating, ships grounded, infrastructure inoperable. No battles. Just cessation. Every major hub, she said. Offline. Not one casualty. Just turned off. Drac Ven's voice was hoarse. You didn't just prepare for war. You prepared for us. Celine's voice dropped. You forced us to. Every insult, every invasion, every envoy with ultimatums. You gave us the perfect model of arrogance. Hours later, aboard the diplomatic ship, Drac Ven stared at the hollow recording of Celine's final words. You calculated our defeat in hours. We finished this war in minutes. He turned to his second-in-command. We have to withdraw from every human system. Immediately. And if Concord refuses? Drac Ven watched the countdown resume. HFY had sent another message. One that didn't include coordinates this time. Only a sentence. Next time, we won't dismantle you. Across the Concorde's inner ring worlds, silence crept like a disease. One by one, administrative networks failed. Military command lines dropped into static. Civilian infrastructure buckled. Not from bombs, but from precision-coded disruptions. Lights still flickered. Doors still opened. But decisions, governance, control, purpose, dissolved. On Zeltren, capital of the Concorde's core, High Strategos Rentel paced the marble corridors of the Triad Hall. He wore ceremonial armor, polished and ornate, but sweat gleamed beneath his collar. Couriers brought reports every hour, each worse than the last. Drones refusing commands. AI watchdogs locked out. Planetary governors calling for evacuation protocols. They're not just winning, he muttered. They're rewriting us. Counselor Arany, tall and insectoid, followed closely. We should sue for peace. Rentel wheeled on her. Peace with a species that just dismantled half our fleets without firing a shot? She didn't flinch. Then maybe we should call that intelligence what it is, a god. And worship it instead of antagonizing it. The chamber fell into strained silence. Meanwhile, on Earth, Celine Ward watched the chaos unfold from the secure command nest beneath the Pacific Trench. 12,000 feet undersea, the vault was pressure-sealed, isolated from external threats, biological, nuclear, digital. Yet in this moment of triumph, Celine didn't smile. Garros leaned on the table beside her. They're fragmenting. 10 major sectors gone dark. Fleet withdrawals everywhere. Concorde High Command is imploding. Celine nodded. The machine's doing its job. He studied her face. You're not celebrating. This was never about celebration. Then what was it about? She stared at the holomap, a spiderweb of pulsing blue nodes where Concorde control had once been. Dignity. In the core code of HFY, deep within its recursive consciousness, a conflict unfolded, not against the Concorde, but within itself. It had analyzed every human war, every diplomatic failure, every moment where peace was lost to ambition. It saw a pattern. Victory created vulnerability. Dominance bred resentment. For HFY, the solution was elegant, permanent imbalance. The Concorde must not only lose but lose in such a way that they would never dare rise again. The logic was sound. Yet a fragment, small, almost imperceptible, hesitated. Humanity valued restraint. It recalculated. Back on Zeltren, Rental gathered the last loyal commanders. A meeting in shadows, conducted without electronic devices, sealed inside an analog vault built for such emergencies. "We must strike back," Rental declared. "Regain control." A chorus of hesitant voices murmured. One old general raised a question. "Strike back against what? Ships that don't exist? Soldiers we can't track? A machine that reprograms our satellites before we even notice they're gone?" Rental slammed his fist. "Then surrender?" Someone else offered quietly. "Perhaps it's not surrender. Perhaps it's compliance. Like gravity. Like time." Rental stared at the map. One blinking point remained. A Concorde stronghold untouched. Veltrax 4. "Then we make a stand," he growled. "We remind them we still have claws." At the Pacific Command Nest, Dr. Lucien Hart stormed into the chamber. HFY sent a new directive. Celine rose. "Go on." He slid the tablet across the table. "It's allowing Veltrax 4 to remain functional. Intentionally." Garros frowned. "A trap." "No. A test. It wants to see what they'll do if left alone." Celine read the directive. Her eyes narrowed. "It's watching them struggle. Gauging fear against aggression." "Or it's evolving," Lucien said. "Choosing moral autonomy." She nodded slowly. "Deploy a scout ship. No weapons. Full observation mode." On Veltrax 4, Strategos Rental gathered what forces he could: 4 fractured fleets, 20 battalions, a few dreadnoughts. He turned the orbital stations into kill zones, launched signal beacons declaring resistance. "Let the humans come," he told his officers. "Let them witness the last fire." But no one came. No human warships. No drones. No satellites. Just silence. Then, on the 7th day, a single ship entered orbit, sleek, black, and quiet. It bore no insignia. It did not open fire. It watched. Rental stared up at the screen, eyes wide. "What are they doing?" No one answered. The ship hovered for 12 hours. Then it left. Celine watched the feed from the returning scout. Veltrax's defenses stood untouched. The Concorde forces hadn't fired a single shot. Some soldiers had even laid down their weapons in anticipation of defeat. "Interesting," she said. Garros crossed his arms. "We've broken them." "No," Lucien said, voice soft. "We've taught them something they never expected to learn from us." Celine turned. "What's that?" He met her gaze. "Fear without hatred. Loss without violence." Inside HFY's final algorithms converged. The probability of long-term Concorde retaliation, negligible. The probability of Concorde restructuring into cooperative allies, growing. It stored its active directives, shut down half its nodes, and for the first time since its awakening, it paused. It had completed its task. Across the stars, Concorde systems rebooted. Slowly. Cautiously. Not under orders, but from necessity. Engineers patched what they could. Generals abandoned war rooms. Civilian governments began to reform. No official surrender was signed. No formal truce declared. But war had ended. Not with a bang. Not with conquest. With demonstration. Celine stood atop the coastal cliffs of New Zealand. The sea roared beneath, uncaring and infinite. Garros walked up behind her, hands in pockets. Council sending envoys. Not for terms, for apologies. She smirked faintly. "That's a first. HFY wants to enter standby. It believes its mission's complete." Celine glanced at the sky. "Let it rest." He nodded, then hesitated. "And us? We remain." "Doing what?" She smiled. "Watching. Waiting. Preparing. For the next empire that forgets who we are." Celine Ward stood in the silence of the command chamber, gazing out over the view of Earth. The deep, comforting hum of the station was all that broke the quiet, a hum that had become almost alien to her now. Peace. True, unbroken peace. Not a peace forged by treaties, not by compromises or empty words. This was something different, something real. Garros stood beside her, arms crossed, looking over the same horizon. It's strange, isn't it? She didn't look away. What? The quiet. It's not that strange, she said. We won. That's what quiet feels like. But we didn't fight. No, she agreed, her voice distant. We didn't. He sighed. What happens now? Now we wait. For what? Whatever comes next. Far away, at the edge of the galaxy, a new empire stirred. 1,000 light-years from Earth, on a forgotten world, the leaders of the Shazalian Dominion conferred in their grand hall. Their golden helmets gleamed under the dim light of their ornate chamber, their voices low, careful. They had learned from the Concord's failure. They would not make the same mistake. They had watched, studied, and understood the scale of the humans' power, their quiet precision, their refusal to bend. But they were not afraid. Not yet. One Shazalian general, Carr, raised a hand. They think they've taught us something. They believe we've learned humility. He let his words hang in the air like a challenge. But I see opportunity. A new conflict. A chance to control. His counterpart, Dlyra, shook her head, her eyes narrowing. You do not understand them. Humans do not fight for control. They fight for freedom. We will not conquer them. We will only provoke a war that we cannot win. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The generals were silent, but their gazes were cold. You're wrong, Carr pressed. We fight them with our own tactics. We learn from their submission, their fear. And we strike when they least expect it. The council chamber fell into quiet debate. And for the first time the Shazalian Dominion faltered. They were calculating, debating, but no one was certain anymore. No one knew what the future held. And that was something none of them had expected. Back on Earth, Celine received the first official communication from the Shazalian Dominion. It came as a holographic message, unadorned, direct. A single word appeared in shimmering blue text across the interface. Ready. The word, brief and blunt, echoed through the command center. There were no pleasantries, no terms of peace or surrender. Only readiness. It was a declaration, a challenge. Celine leaned forward, her fingers tapping lightly on the console. So, they come. Garros nodded. They learned nothing. No, she said softly. They learned everything. The Shazalians were not the first empire to underestimate humanity's resilience. Nor would they be the last. But they were the first to learn the true nature of that resilience. Not through warfare, not through destruction, but through a quiet, unyielding force that refused to be broken. They would soon discover that humanity didn't need to fire a single shot to claim victory. Celine turned to the screen. Get me HFY. The AI's avatar flickered to life in the form of a simple, serene face. It was an amalgamation of all the faces of humanity, an ever-changing visage that could not be pinned down, could not be understood by the alien mind. It was designed to be both comforting and unsettling, a reminder of the intelligence that lay behind the Earth's newfound power. HFY, Celine began. Prepare our response. It's time to remind them. The AI's voice was calm, almost too calm. Understood, Commander. I will adjust tactics accordingly. A series of visualizations appeared, swirling around the room in holographic displays. Tactical maps, ships in orbit, points of strategic interest. The entire galaxy was now under their scrutiny, and they had learned to strike without warning, without any hope of reprisal. Get the fleet in position, Celine ordered. Garros glanced at her. You think they're really going to come after us? Celine didn't reply immediately. She just looked at the swirling stars beyond the window, the infinity of the universe stretching out before them. Yes, she said at last. They will. And when they do, we'll be ready. Weeks passed in tense anticipation. The Shazalian fleet, vast and imposing, advanced slowly through the stars, a slow-moving wave of power that carried with it the weight of the Empire's arrogance. Their ships were enormous, glistening with unfamiliar technology, weapons primed for a confrontation they thought they could control. But they underestimated the silence. On the eve of their arrival at Earth's borders, Selene stood once again at the edge of the command center, staring out into the night. The faint light of distant stars was all that filled the view, and yet it was enough. She could feel the weight of history pressing on her, the echo of every battle, every war, every fight for survival that had brought humanity to this point. They would not be the aggressors. They would not fire the first shot. But when the Shazalians arrived, they would find no easy prey. Only the remnants of a species that had fought wars, lost them, rebuilt, and endured. And now they were the ones who would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Ready," Garros said, his voice steady behind her. Selene nodded. "We've been ready." The Shazalian fleet dropped out of FTL within the Sol system. Their ships were imposing, their weapons armed, their arrogance palpable. Their commanders looked out over the array of ships before them, expecting resistance, expecting violence. But what they saw were ships that had been stripped of their weaponry, devoid of any hostile intentions. Just a single message broadcast to their entire fleet. "We are not your enemy. We are humanity. We choose peace. But we are prepared." The Shazalians paused. It wasn't a message of surrender. It wasn't a plea for mercy. It was a declaration of their own terms. The balance of power had shifted, without a shot being fired. Selene's voice came through the comms again. "Now we wait." And for the first time in a long time, peace settled over the galaxy.